with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's a podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week, I am joined by an Alabama native who's getting ready to take the Next from Nashville stage at Watershed this weekend. But before that, we wanted to help you get to know him a little better. And he just so happens to have the greatest first name in all the land. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Tyler Braden. Tyler, how the heck are you, buddy?
Doing good, man. How are y'all doing?
We are doing fantastic. I just drove back up to Washington from Nevada. So you are the first new episode in the new studio here.
I love it. That's awesome.
Awesome. And we'll get to know you a little bit here in just a minute when we tee off with Tyler next.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Tyler Braden. Here comes the first four.
Okay, here we go. Question number one, Tyler. If you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, what job would you have? And I feel like I already know the answer to this one.
Yeah, I would guess I would still be in the fire service. Actually still have some of my certifications. I think we're getting pretty close to them being, to losing them. But if I wasn't in the entertainment industry, I'd definitely still be in the fire service.
I feel like just about anybody that knows anything about you probably could have guessed that that was the answer to that one. But how about this? Question number two. If I give you control of the music at a party, I hand over the iPhone and tell you to play something, what's the first song you're going to play for everybody?
Oh, gosh. The very first song, I don't know. Song specifically hard. I know it'll probably be like the Foo Fighters.
Okay.
I could maybe Best of You or something Everlong or something by the Foo Fighters.
I think it'd be hard to play the Foo Fighters and not find a song that everybody's gonna get up and dance and a time to.
Absolutely.
Okay, this one will make you think a little bit. What character from TV, movies, book, any fictional character would you bring to life and hang out with for a day?
George Costanza.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, man, I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, so that'd probably be the one. Him or Kramer, I guess, but with him being based on Larry David, I'd probably have to do George Costanza.
There you go. I like that. George was always my favorite on Seinfeld. So relatable.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question of the first four. If I give you an unlimited supply of anything, whiskey, tacos, guitar strings, scotch tape, whatever, I guess it wouldn't be whiskey for you, but what would it be?
Ooh, limited supply of anything. I'm gonna have to say coffee.
Okay. Any specific style, brand?
Not really. I drink Starbucks all the way to just brewing stuff at the house. Nespresso pods might be a good place to start.
There you go.
They're not cheap, so I think Nespresso pods.
I love it, buddy. Well, thank you so much for playing along in the first four. Thanks for helping us get to know you. But let's turn the attention to you. Let us know kind of the Cliff Notes version of growing up in Slap Out, Alabama, and how you got into music. Your parents kind of really drove that passion, right?
Yeah. My parents and a lot of my aunts and uncles, almost all of them sang the whole time growing up. So that was what really started it. My parents did, local parties and local venues and things like that. So I always sang with them growing up. And then I started learning guitar in my late teens, just from friends and just picking around at the house and stuff like that. That's kind of what got me started, was my parents doing it.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's got to help you that young. I mean, as you've just kind of grown up in that world, how much do you think, being involved in that world really kind of helped you want to venture out on your own as an artist versus just kind of being in the world itself, if that makes sense?
Man, it's really hard to say, because I don't know if it really crossed my mind as a career when I was real young, doing it with my parents and stuff like that. But I started in like some rock bands and things like that when I was 19, 20 years old. And that's the first time I really considered doing it, on my own publicly. And later on, I was in a contest where it was like an American Idol style thing locally in Alabama. And I won that contest, and that won a trip to Nashville. So that was the first time I ever considered any sort of attempt at doing it for a living.
So what was that like the first time that you went to Nashville? You won that Battle of the Band style contest. You ended up in Nashville for that recording session. But what was that first impression of Nashville like for you?
Man, it was great. Well, one thing is it snowed like crazy, so I definitely thought it was going to snow more in Nashville, but it doesn't about once a year, I think. But I caught a real bad snow day when I was up here. But I got to go to a writer's round for the first time ever, and that really hooked me in. And I got to get up and play a couple when I talked to the guy who was running the round. And so I was here with a couple buddies and really getting to check it out and get to network and see what it was like in Midtown and going downtown and things like that.
So then, you ended up getting to Nashville, and most musicians have a few jobs to kind of try and make a living, or a few jobs before they try and make a living as an artist. And we talked about it a little bit. You were a firefighter out there. Was that always kind of a dream growing up to be a firefighter? Is that something that you kind of fell into and fell in love with?
I actually just kind of fell into it. I had a close friend of mine that lived with me in Alabama, and his dad was a retired firefighter. And he just asked me to apply with him. So we both applied at the same time. We both ended up testing at the same time and going through fire college together. They took like 35 people out of a couple thousand, I think. And we both got in together. And coincidentally, we were standing beside each other in alphabetical order. So we literally went through the whole thing side by side. And that's kind of, and I love that from the beginning as well. And it just worked out and it kind of made me who I am.
I mean, that's pretty cool. And it takes a special kind of person to be a firefighter. I'm not too big of a man to say that I don't have the guts to run into a burning building. And once you kind of got everything situated, was it tough to leave that? I guess really it's got to be a passion if you're a firefighter. Was it tough to leave that to chase the music dream?
And it was definitely mixed emotions. It was tough to leave, my friends and the camaraderie we built and getting to hang out all the time and just doing something that I loved. But at the same time, I was super excited and had waited a really long time to be able to have the opportunity to be able to step out and go full time in music. So, like I said, it was definitely mixed emotions.
Well, and then you kind of had a crossing of both of those worlds when you found out that you were going to play the Opry for the first time. Give everybody that story.
So, I put on an annual golf tournament every year, and this was my chief from a city that I worked with in Tennessee, Brentwood, Tennessee, was there to kind of help host it. And the firefighters came. It was in Brentwood, and him and my manager kind of got together and surprised me with the news that I'd be making my Opry debut the following January, right after New Year's. And so when I got there, I mean, your debut at the Opry is awesome because everyone there is so nice. All of the crew, everyone that works there understands how special it is for someone to be making their debut. So they record the whole thing. They shoot a video while you're doing it, they interview you and talk to you while you're going through it. And I got stopped by so many crew members saying, hey man, just slow down, take it all in, because they know that you're kind of nervous and you're not sure what to do with your hands kind of thing. And so everyone there knows what you're going through. And so they're so nice through it all. And then getting to stand out there and kind of take it all in before the crowd's there, they let you have that moment. And then as you walk out there, I tried to make sure to slow down and remember the moment of stepping into the circle for the first time. And like you said, it kind of crossed worlds because I want to say 35, 40 people or so came from the fire station with families and friends coming from there. And so we got to bring a couple of those guys backstage and to see our dressing room and to hang out for a second. So that was really cool. It was just an unforgettable experience.
Well, I bet. I mean, playing the Opry itself, it has got to be just absolutely incredible. But to be able to do it in that way with people that are so close to you and that are so important to you has got to be extra special. What had you been backstage at the Opry, through a tour or with a buddy, anything like that before you got to play there?
No, I'd never been in the building whatsoever. I was trying to kind of just save it so everything would feel brand new when I got there, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I've talked to a few different people about their Opry debut, and I think it's about 50-50. Everybody says, I tried to soak it in. I tried to take as much as I could and remember that moment when I stepped into the circle. And half of them go, I don't remember anything about it as much as I tried. Do you remember what that was like looking out at that crowd standing in that circle?
I mostly remember kind of the moment itself. It was like I did make sure I stopped and I looked down and I paused for what felt like 10 seconds, but it was probably more like half a second. And I just slowly stepped in, and I definitely remember that very specifically, but I was looking down. I wasn't really looking up at the crowd at the time. And they said that as I wrapped up, that I had felt like I tried to stay there and take it all in as we finished up. But they said it looked like I ran off stage. So it feels like you're going slow and taking it in, but it's a lot less time is passing than you realize.
I can imagine that. You got all that adrenaline pumping through your system. Time feels slow, but you're just running around. Yeah, and I'm not going to ask you to compare that really cool moment to another really cool moment you had earlier this year, but I want to talk about it. You got married, and I've seen a few of the pictures from your wedding. And as a married man, I need some advice because you are wearing a ball cap in most of the pictures. How did you convince your wife to let you wear a ball cap? Because I tried to wear a bow tie and got shot down, and there was no moving that. So I'm kind of proud of you for that.
Well, she was in from the get-go that it didn't matter which one. Like if I went without it or I didn't. So during the service, I didn't wear it. And then like all the initial pictures, I didn't. And then we just kind of halfway through the pictures, I put the hat on and it matched and looked fine. So she didn't mind from the get-go.
You found a good one there. And that's it does look sharp. I'm not going to lie at all. It looks really good.
I appreciate it.
So, and then I've also read this story about rocks at your wedding.
Yeah.
Is that something that you always collected, or was that something special for the wedding?
So it's actually something that I did when I was little, and Marissa also did, and we kind of didn't know it. And Marissa still to this day will pick up a small rock if we're somewhere in a new town or a new city, new state, and she'll grab one. And so we had this idea, we'll put it in the bowl, and that just represents all of our different lives, different families, different friends coming together as one. And so we thought that was a great idea. And then out of the craziest coincidence, my mother had actually brought rocks that I brought inside when I was about 4 years old in my pockets. And she would get mad and throw them out so that they'll end up in the washing machine and stuff like that. But I would catch her every once in a while and tell her and get mad at her and not let her throw them out. So she's kept these rocks for almost 30 years. And she had no idea we're doing this ceremony. And she brought these rocks for our wedding. So it actually was too perfect. You couldn't have written a better story.
No, not at all. I mean, that's one of those serendipitous moments. I mean, so the rock thing, you guys go and collect. Are you bringing the wife with you out to Washington? Because we've got a river right there with some pretty cool rocks.
She won't be able to make this one. She's shooting. She's got a different gig in Texas, but I'll definitely scoop one up.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to. And I want to circle back to the firefighting for a second, because again, you blended that with your country music lifestyle, your songs there. We have a song for everybody to listen to that you recorded. It's called Brother, but I feel like even though it's not a song that you wrote, it's very personal. Give us the story behind the decision to record the song and then what that recording process was actually like for you.
Well, we had actually kind of started messing around with an acoustic at the house when I was still doing just acoustic trio. And we just realized that it kind of fit our voices and it kind of fit the situation. And, you know, we put together like this cover of it and started playing it for shows as a tribute. And it just kind of stuck from the very beginning. It's fit all the way through to full band. And we still do this a cappella thing at the end of it. And it's just always been a staple of the show. And so about a year or so after we had started covering it, we decided we got the blessing from Bear Reinert and all them for Me to Breathe and Gavin DeGraw and that for us to cut our version. And it was supposed to be a song that would probably come out 4th or 5th or something, you know, after we put out some originals. But then COVID happened and everything shut down, and it just made sense to put out a sort of a tribute thing. And that's how we ended up putting it out first. But it was just recorded in my first batch of songs that we cut, and that ended up coming out later on the EP.
Well, here, let's let everybody that hasn't heard it yet take a listen to it. This one is called Brother, from today's guest, Tyler Braden.
Ramblers in the wilderness, we can't find what we need. Get a little restless from the searching, get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing the matadors, a man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside you, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter, I'll never leave you all alone.
one was Brother by today's guest, Tyler Braden. He's going to be at Watershed, but a lot of you might have heard him from his time on NBC's American Song Contest. And Tyler, before we get into what the experience on the show was like, how did you end up on the show at all?
So I had not heard of it. I'd heard of Eurovision overseas, but I didn't know we were doing an American version. And my management actually talked me into it. And so they spoke with the people running the show and submitted some songs, possible songs for me to do on the show if I was selected. And they ended up getting me selected for Tennessee. And it was a really cool opportunity and they kind of surprised me with it and by turning in my songs and all that. And it was kind of cool that we got to go through probably 10 or 12 songs. I got the whole crew, the band, my wife, just everyone, my management, my publishing label. Everyone looked at these songs and broke it down to one song to do on the show. And it ended up being a song that was probably one of the first 20 that I'd ever written some years back. And I wrote it by myself. And it was really cool to kind of get that stamp of approval on what I do as a writer and what I'd done from the very beginning to get to kind of go back to an older song and play it.
Well, and not just being selected for the show had to be pretty incredible, but being selected to represent a state like Tennessee with Nashville, where it's just the home of music in general at this point. What was that like? Was that kind of more of a confirming moment for you that you were on the right path when you were selected for Tennessee?
Man, it was really cool because there are multiple contestants representing their home states that I knew that lived in Nashville as when the show started. And it was kind of cool to get to represent really all of us because I'd done the same thing they did. And I just happened to be the one that represented Tennessee because it had such an impact on my career. And so it was cool to be able to represent kind of everyone as a whole, just kind of the music industry as a whole and, country music, songwriting and all that as one. And it was really cool. Yeah.
Well, and I kind of buried the lead there. You also made it all the way to the finale. What was that like, having a chance there at the end, to be named the top of the contest?
Man, honestly, the best outcome of all of that was just getting to meet as many other contestants as I could, just being on that many different episodes with that many different people and learning about how many different backgrounds and the different influences that people have on the different types of music that are all across the country. And so that was the best part of it, I believe, just meeting all the people. And because everyone was so cool and just such amazing humans and getting to hang out with everybody. And just like I said, another stamp of approval, getting picked by the industry professionals to move through on every single episode.
Well, and now everybody in Washington that's going to be at Watershed is going to get a chance to see you take the stage under the Nashville North Tent, which is by far my favorite place at the entire festival. But what can people expect when Tyler Braden hits the stage there this weekend?
Man, like I mentioned earlier, how I would pick the Foo Fighters. This rock has always been an influence of mine. So our show is definitely rock influenced, and we try to keep it upbeat and heavier, especially on these shorter sets at festivals. We know everyone's there to have a good time, so we try to keep it upbeat. And we'll be playing a new song that we're going to radio with here in actually a week and a half or so. And so I'm very excited, and we're just ready to go, man.
Well, that's perfect timing for you to be there right before the song goes to radio. So if you're out there listening, especially in the campgrounds this weekend, he's not on stage until Sunday afternoon. So get there so that you can hear this song before it hits radio. But Tyler, you were just out on tour with Brooks and Dunn, which I feel like has to be one of the most surreal and amazing things in the world to do just in general. I mean, that's I am in no way a musician, but if I could go out on tour with Brooks and Dunn, I would just sit there and play like a kazoo for 20 minutes. What was that like when you got the call and found out that you were actually going to go out on tour with them?
Man, it was surreal. They did through this tour. They had a lot of openers and kind of spread it out. So we got one weekend with them, and we were blessed to get the weekend that played in Nashville. So we get to do our first show at Bridgestone, and that's a really big moment that's kind of like playing the Opry. It's a really big moment to play your first show in town, in the arena that we're around every day. And I played with Brooks and Dunn and Jordan Davis on the first two shows of the weekend. And then when we got to Nashville, we played with Brooks and Dunn and Darius Rucker. And it was so cool to get to see just two legends and, two veterans of the game up there and watch their show. And I got to have my parents in town in Nashville for them to watch Brooks and Dunn live. They brought up Miranda Lambert. My mom loves Miranda Lambert. The whole thing it's really going to be really hard to top. It was just so great to be able to have my parents there and to play Bridgestone for the first time, opening for someone like Brooks and Dunn that I've listened to literally my entire life. So it was amazing.
Man, that is a heck of a way to make your mark in downtown Nashville, is playing at Bridgestone with that kind of a group with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. It's wild.
So was there anything that you were able to pick up? I mean, pull the curtain back a little bit for folks that aren't in that world. When you're opening up for somebody like Brooks and Dunn, do you get to spend any time with them before or after the show, or are you guys kind of separate the whole time? What's that like?
Man, it really just depends on the day. I got to meet, Kix a few times. Ronnie was pretty busy, most of the time, so I didn't really get to see him as much. But Kix's wife was there for a couple of shows, so I got to meet her. And, it just, like I said, it just kind of depends on the whole day and how busy people are, because artists always have something to do day of show, whether it's an interview like this or just something. So it really just depends. But like I said, I did get to meet those guys and got to meet Kix a few times, and it's great. Their whole crew was great. Their sound guys, helped us, get our stuff, prepare our stuff. And it was cool to see how hospitable their crew was. And it was just a good weekend.
Well, you've been kind of making a habit of hanging out with some of the biggest names in country music. You just shared a snippet on your Instagram a few days ago of a song that you wrote with Rhett Akins. Can you tell us about that song yet?
Yeah, man. I was just wanting to throw out some demos and stuff that, we write so many songs and you never know what'll happen with them. If I'll cut them, if someone else will cut them. And I just liked that song and the message that it had. So I that day just got a wild hair and decided to post, the demo of it. And I'd written that with Rhett Akins and Will Bundy. And it was just a good day. So and I was going through some demos and just happened to be hooked on that one for the day. And I thought it'd be cool to post it.
It's a good one. If you haven't seen it yet, head over to Tyler Braden's Instagram. And Tyler, what are your social media handles for everybody?
It's just Tyler Braden Music or at Tyler Braden on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. So, and you can find all the links on tylerbraden.com either way.
Super easy there. We'll make sure to link your website here in the description of this show. But what else is coming up this year for you that you can spill the beans on without getting in too much trouble?
Well, like I said, we're going to radio here in a week or so, and I've been really excited about that. And we're playing more festivals between now and the end of the summer, and we're doing a lot of headlining stuff later this year. We're working on possible tour with another artist in the fall, just for 4 or 5 weeks. I can't really say too much on that just yet, but we're getting ready for next year. Seeing how the song being at radio, how it affects everything, and how it changes touring. We're just excited to see what happens.
So what I'm hearing is that everybody needs to get their butt to the next From Nashville tent on Sunday afternoon, and then they need to follow you on social media because you got some big stuff that might be popping off this year. I love it, buddy.
Oh, for sure.
Well, Tyler, man, it has been an absolute blast. I can't wait to see you on Sunday. Hopefully we'll have a chance to say hi. The future for you looks bright as heck. But before we let you get out of here, we end every podcast the same way. It's called the Final Four. 4 just questions again that kind of make you think. You up for it?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
It's time for the Final Four.
Question number 1, and this is actually a question that somebody sent to us on Instagram. What's your favorite guitar brand or style?
Man, I love the McPherson's that I play now. They've hooked us up with a couple guitars, and I use them on the road. They're carbon fiber acoustic guitars, and they're just so great for touring because they never go out of tune. And obviously the strings do ultimately, but man, they sound so good and they're borderline indestructible. You feel a little better flying with them and things like that. But then also I grew up, my dad loved Takamine and Martin growing up. So man, every guitar brand makes phenomenal guitars at some level. But right now I've been playing these McPherson's and I hope to play them, for many more years. Like I said, they're great touring guitars and they sound phenomenal.
That is a great answer. Okay. Question number 2. And you can look at your phone and cheat if you need to. Who are your 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify or Apple Music?
All right, I will look. Let's see. I don't even know if I knew that you could look at your recent. I'll just pull up the search.
There you go.
Okay, so I recently searched Mike Posner.
Okay.
Adam Craig and Larry Fleet. Those are my 3 recent searches. I write with Adam a lot. Larry, I've never met. But I write with Adam, and he was just such a great artist. He doesn't really do the hardest thing anymore, but he's still got music on Spotify, and he's just so incredibly talented.
He really is.
Mike Posner just happened to be back. Mike Posner just happened to be backstage at our last festival, so I happened to look him up then. But yeah.
Nice. That's a good one. Okay. Question number 3. And this one, again, from Instagram, from our friend Max Casto. What's the best piece of advice that somebody's ever given you?
Man, I think the best advice is, one big one that's just kind of open is just to continually network and just try to meet new people as often as you can. But in that, when you find people that, support you and are faithful to you, you try to take them with you, and because there's room for everybody at the top. I'm lucky to have my best friends in the crew with me. And so, I hope to never lose them, and I'll always take them with me everywhere I go. I think that's the biggest thing, is just finding the ones that are close to you, and they're going to support you, and just taking them with you.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. Last question for the whole thing, Tyler, and take as much or as little time as you want to answer this one. If you could pick one thing for people to take away from your appearance on the show or your music in general, what would it be?
Man, honestly, I think the biggest thing is, you only get to live once, and you got to chase what you want to chase, and you got to aim for what you want to aim for. Because, if you don't try, then the answer is no, that you're not going to make it. And so anytime you have a dream, you can't be scared of what other people say, and you got to try and put your best foot forward. There's a slogan, it's actually on one of my guitar straps, called Break the Twine. And it came from a lesson I learned when I was younger. Talked about elephants in African tribes getting chained up by their ankle with shackles, and they would fight to get out of these shackles, and it would kind of hurt their ankle and tear their ankle down to the bone. So after that, they could tie them up with a piece of twine, and they wouldn't move because they were scared the same thing would happen. And it's just a lesson that if you'll take the first step towards what you want to do and break that twine, and not be scared of what happened last time you tried or what happened on your last attempt, and you can be an unstoppable force. And so just not be scared to try.
There you go. You heard it from Tyler Braden himself. Break the twine. Tyler, thank you so much again for jumping on here. We'll have to do it again in the future, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Man, I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. And that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's a country music podcast where you find new friends and new music, like future watershedder Tyler Braden.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast. This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Jay Gwinn. And as always, hosted by Ty Pisani.